Welcome to Wheelock's Latin Chapter 7. This week we're going to be looking at third declension nouns. We've already looked at first and second declension. Second declension had both masculine and neuter gender, and this week we're going to have all three, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Let's do a quick review. So far in nouns, again, first, second declension nouns. Here are the endings that we've learned thus far. First declension, I, aurum, is, as, is, I. Second declension was divided into masculine and neuter. The masculine endings were us, o, e, aurum, is, os, is, e. The second declension neuter was very similar to second declension masculine with a few alterations in first in nominative singular and plural, as well as in accusative plural, and then vocative singular and plural is going to be different. So let's look at that. Those endings are e, o, a, aurum, is, a. So those are the endings that we've learned thus far in first and second declension. And if you haven't nailed those down, you need to go ahead and spend some time memorizing them. Just say them over and over and get them memorized. Chapter 7, however, is about third declension nouns. Let's look at this table to see our new third declension endings. Now, if you notice on the left side of this table that third declension, masculine and feminine, they share the same set of endings. Masculine, feminine, third declension share the same set of endings. And if you'll notice, there are two places where there are no endings. We just have a blank or a hashtag as a placeholder in the nominative singular and the vocative singular. That's because there's an irregularity. There's no pattern to the nominative singular in third declension. So really, the telltale sign for third declension is to look at the genitive form, which will always have an is ending, a short I and an s. Not a long I and s like the dative and ablative plural for first and second declension nouns, but a short I and s. And of course, our vocative rule is whatever's in the nominative has to be in the vocative. So because it's sporadic or very differentiated in the nominative singular, the vocative will be the exact same form in the singular for vocative. So let's do this. And when I chant, I'll either say like blank to indicate that hashtag, or I'll say like X, like a placeholder. I think I'll just say blank this time. So it's blank, is, e, m, blank, s, ibus, s, ibus, s. Now, you're just going to have to memorize these like you did all the other endings. This is part of learning Latin. Learning a different or new language is memorizing the endings. So take the time to memorize these. Blank is e, m, blank, s, ibus, s, ibus, s. Now, let's look at the third declension neuter. This is almost identical to the masculine feminine. Just like the second declension neuter was nearly identical to the second declension masculine with just a few alterations, specifically in the area of nominative and accusative plural, and in the area of nominative singular. Here, the nominative singular, again, is irregular. It's all over the place. And we have, as we had the neuter rule before, whatever's in the nominative also has to be in the accusative. So in this particular case, that blank in nominative singular neuter is also in the accusative singular. So the chant goes something like this. Blank is e blank blank. And then here in the plural, the nominative plural is an a, and because of the neuter rule, whatever's in the and the vocative rule, whatever's in the nominative has to also be in the accusative and the vocative. You also see this a in the vocative and accusative plurals. So once again, starting the singular, blank is e blank blank, ibus, a. And those are our third declension noun endings. And you'll need to memorize these. Again, if you get the third declension masculine and feminine nailed down, all you have to remember is add the a into the nominative plural, and then remember your your neuter rule and your vocative rule. Whatever's in the nominative must be in the accusative and in the vocative, and you've got it. So go ahead and take the time to memorize these, and I'm going to move on to the next slide after you're ready. Now, here we have some third declension nouns declined for us. On the left side of the table, we have an example of a masculine third declension noun, rex, regis, and a third declension feminine, virtus, virtutus. Rex, of course, you probably recognize, means king, and virtus or virtutus means courage or virtue. And so let's take a look at this. Rex the word ends in an EX. And actually, it used to be originally like an REGS, regs, regs. And as you can see, that GS sound merges into an X, and eventually it morphed into just rex. So you've got rex and the genitive reg, and that is the stem. Remember how you find the stem is simply by underlining the ending. In this case, the ending is is. If you underline that and then draw a big separating line to the left of the ending, that leaves you the stem reg. And it is to this reg that you add all of your other third declension endings. So you would write down reg, reg, in all of these cells here if you were writing it out, and then you would simply add your endings. Blank, so you don't write anything for nominative singular because that form is already in place, rex. Genitive, it's the is, which again, if you've already written the genitive, you've got that. And then for the dative, you add the endings e, m, e, and then for the vocative, whatever's in the nominative must be in the vocative, so therefore it's rex in the vocative singular. And then the plural column, you add es, so it's s, ibis, s, ibis. And again, whatever's in the nominative has to be in the vocative, so you have reges. So it's rex, regis, regi, regem, rege, rex, reges, regum, regibus, reges, regibus, reges. And this is the word for king. Now, the feminine example we have for us is, again, vortus, vortutus. And so again, if you underline that is, you've got vortut as your stem, so you would add all of the endings to that, and you end up with vortus, vortutus, vortuti, vortutem, vortute, vortus. Again, whatever's in the nominative has to be in the vocative. Plural, vortutes, vortutem, vortutibus, sorry, I got sidetracked, vortutes, vortutibus, vortutes. Again, whatever's in the nominative has to be in the accusative and in the, has to be in the vocative here. Now, the last thing we'll look at is the third declension neuter endings. And again, those endings are blank, is, e, blank, e, blank, ibis, a. We have the example here, third declension neuter, is corpus, which means body. And here we go. It's corpus, and the genitive is corporis. Corporis. You underline the is ending. You end up with corpor as your stem, and to that, you add all of your third declension neuter endings. Again, keeping in mind your, in this case, the neuter rule, which is whatever's in the nominative has to be in the accusative, and also the vocative rule, whatever's in the nominative has to be in the vocative. So you've got corpus not only in nominative singular, but also in accusative singular and in the vocative singular. For the plural, corpora, because again, the plural nominative ending is a, and again, the the neuter rule and the vocative rule are in place. So you've got corpora in accusative plural and vocative plural as well. So corpora, corporum, corporibus, corpora, corporibus, corpora. So those are your third declension. Again, the process is the same. Find the stem in the genitive by dropping the genitive ending. And then once you've got your stem, if you know your endings, you just add them to that stem, and you should be able to decline any third declension noun. Now, from this point forward, we're no longer going to be including the vocative in our chants. Just keep in mind that if you know the nominative, you also know the vocative. And so from now on, our charts are going to look a little bit more like this, with just the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. Now, there's just one more thing I want to add before we move on. Third declension noun genders. The gender of third declension nouns do have a pattern. And so if you pay attention to this, you will be able to determine if a noun is generally, if you can tell, if it's masculine, feminine, or neuter by looking at these patterns. In the masculine, generally, there's a whole category of nouns that end in or in the nominative and oris in the genitive. Amor, amoris, victor, victoris, scriptor, scriptoris. And generally, these are what we call agent nouns, or nouns of agency. These are persons that are performing tasks. So, for instance, if you think about it in English, what is a scriptor? It's one who writes. And that's what this Latin word means, author. Pardon me. Victor, this is one who has victory. It's a victor, etc. Feminine, you can see this pattern. Now, it's a little bit broader here. Tas, tatis. Tus, tutis. Tudo, tudinus, Tio, tionis. These are the patterns for many of the feminine third declension nouns. And here's some examples. Veritas, veritatis, meaning truth. Virtus, virtutis, meaning courage. Multitudinous, that's a hard word to say. That means multitude or crowd. Natio, nationis, meaning nation. These are more like abstract concepts, that these kind of nouns that are feminine with these that fit in this pattern. And then lastly, we have the neuter. And these patterns usually look like this. You'll have if it ends in us in the nominative, it's neuter. It's third declension neuter. If it ends in an e, al, or ar, I need to actually back up. If it ends in us, you say, well, wait a minute, what about second declension masculine? That ends in us. Yeah, but if it ends in us in the nominative and in the genitive, the ending is an is, you know it's third declension, and specifically third declension neuter. But also, third declension neuter will have a nominative ending in e, or al, or ar, or it could end in men. So here are some examples. Genus, generis, meaning type or class. We get the word genus from this. Corpus, corporis. This is, again, neuter. We saw this in an example a minute ago. Body is the definition. Tempus, temporis, meaning time. Then you've got mare, maris, meaning sea. Animal, animalis, means animal. Don't confuse this with animus, which means like mind or spirit or soul. And exemplar, exemplaris, which is a pattern or mold. And then finally, example of this last one with the men ending, carmen, carmenis. This word means song or poem. So if you learn these endings, these patterns, you can pretty much determine if it's masculine, feminine, or neuter in the third declension. So that's going to do it for us for the rest of this chapter. Go ahead and make sure you study your vocabulary, and you'll have a quiz next time we meet. We'll talk to you later.